Hey everybody, it's me, Root Beer, and Set 7 came out, which means it's time for one of these again. Root Beer opens a box while yapping about the set. I wanted to make a more in-depth version of this video where I kind of re-review the set. If you follow the channel, you know we do set reviews when they come out in Japan. Go check out our streams for those, but it's always good to kind of revisit it with the benefit of hindsight once it's out in English. Plus, some people don't really pay attention until it's out in English anyways, right? So, I wanted to do that, and then it didn't turn out very well, so we're doing one of these again. Set 7 is a set that I've really been looking forward to. Like Set 5, it's a very significant meta-changing set. In particular, we got, the new Buff Sagra, which has proven itself to be a Tier 0 deck in the Japanese format. No box toppers again. We just kind of let Bushiro just, get rid of that. I can't believe it. A few people have pointed it out, but it feels like it's never been, a major discussion point that we just kind of got rid of those box topper promos. So, yeah, Set 7 is a pretty significant set, meta-wise, where we have something like Bob Sagra, which really changes the game. On top of that, we also have Artisaria, which, while it isn't, meta, it was very popular in Japan. It was, pretty widely used. I think, second or third after Bob Sagra. So, yeah. And this time I actually bought a whole case. I'm only reserving one of those boxes for this video, and then we also kind of opened some of them on stream, and then I opened some of them off stream just because, a whole case is just too much for 1 hour that we usually do. But yeah, lots of things to look forward to, including the double R we have here, which is support for Almagestar or Astroya, depending on which part of the deck you're looking at, which, cool, me personally, I was kind of looking forward to everything in this set. Astroya is one of those archetypes that, I kind of started playing somewhat ironically when I pulled a case of set 10, actually. I pulled, the secret of Astroya Mask, and I was so upset by it that I played the deck because, that's just how it is, right? You pull a high rarity, foil version of a card and you're like, oh, well, I gotta. Another thing included in this set, this double R we have here, which is for Chris Rain. This card I did not think was super impressive. It was on play, Soul Blast, look at your top card, either call or discard it. I'm just I don't know, I wish it was closer to, what's it called? Lieselot, where, that one will, call it or put it into Soul. This one's just, discarding it. There's nothing you can really do with discarding a card in Lyrical, so I was kind of disappointed by that one, And, of course, on top of those two that I pointed out, there's a lot of other things. Like I said, Artisaria's deck I'm really looking forward to. Lots of people were kind of scared by the prospect of Lock coming back. Oh, we have the Overtrigger here, which... And then, once they started doing Artisaria reveals, everyone was like, yeah, actually, maybe this deck is bad, because it can only play one sound system a turn. And, the lock was kind of limited. I think Artisaria is fine. I feel like people were being a little too hyperbolic in one direction or the other with Artisaria, and so... the deck's fine. I'm looking forward to playing it, and I do think, in future sets, set 8 specifically, we are going to get things that make the deck a lot better, so, alongside all the new stuff being reprinted, because set 7 is kind of the start of a new season in the Vanguard anime, where they're moving on to kind of the next arc now that all the, Fated Clash and Destined Showdown stuff is over. They're going into the Deluxe, which is a more traditional tournament arc, so they're kind of reprinting all the essentials, like the Overtriggers. You also saw we got, reprint of the PGs. I believe they also reprinted the regular effect triggers, which we have not pulled yet. But all of those are kind of the fundamentals of deck building that you can kind of pull from this set, which always nice for them to kind of do that every, cycle of new cards. Our first Silver Rare, which is just you choose a plant token and give it 10k by putting this into the soul. Not the most impressive Silver Rare, gonna be honest here. Oh, we also got our first sound system for Artisaria, another PG. But yeah, aside from those, the other new archetypes in this set are, of course, the cover card Vice Ruger, which is, it has this mechanic of like you get a moon gate order and then you put cards into your order zone and call them out with the ability of said moon gate. That deck is honestly a little bit of a mess that it's just so many resources have to be spent to kind of do your very basic combo, and that basic combo is basically just set one Bastion. It's not great. So our double R, we've been pulling so many double Rs so far, is for Argo Siren, one of the other new archetypes in this set. So kind of an Aqua Force-esque archetype. So it uses like special set orders called Tidings. So, one of them can call Tier Dragons, another one searches your Argo Sirens, and then, the grade 3 Calliope, which we haven't pulled yet. Oh, speaking of Tidings, we have one here. So yeah, one of the Tidings, this one, searches Tier Dragons, the other one searches Argo Siren names, and then the Vanguard Calliope can bind the Tiding cards to, like, get an effect. So this one restands your Vanguard when it's bound, and then the other one restands a rear guard. So this one is locked to your opponent being grade 3 or greater, so the idea is, once your opponent is at grade 3, it's a deck that makes 5 attacks, 1 additional Vanguard attack, 1 additional rear guard attack, and the Argo Sirens are meant to be kind of back row supporters, while the front row attackers are all Tier Dragons. It's a pretty neat archetype. I'll admit it's a bit of a blind spot performance-wise, just because I didn't get too much testing in, but in theory I like it. Excuse me. Oh, well, we got a frame rare, which is prison support. Neat. Sorry, prison is not my thing. I, bought it off of Atlas at one point because he got rid of the deck, and then never really played with it afterwards. I feel like I could potentially just reconstruct the deck and give it back to him. I don't know, leave a comment if you want me to do that, I guess. We pulled a copy of Blade Feather Dragon. I appreciate that these cards get reprinted semi-regularly, Like, it's good to just make them available so that people have access to them, even if, like, these critical triggers in particular, no one ever uses their effect. It's nice to just have them on principle. And as I was saying before we pulled that, we also have Houndraiser, another new archetype introduced in this set. So they're a Keter archetype, they're revolving around calling out High Beast, kind of like the Beast Tamers previously. You can kind of figure that from the name. So, the grade 3 Aoi is able to, search a High Beast out of your deck, and then you can give it, back row attack, and if your opponent's grade 3, it drive check. So it's kind of like Graham Grace, but you have way more deck thinning. I like that deck. The only unfortunate thing about that one is basically mandatory to be playing Saragalon. The fact that you can just search it out every turn is just too good to pass up. Ooh, we got the Gold Vice Ruger order. That's nice to have. I say that like I didn't buy a whole ass case. Oh, and a Shadow Army for Artasaria. Better set that aside for later. I haven't pulled any actual triple Rs yet. We've just kind of been pulling the alt foilings. And since I did buy a case, there is always the possibility we could pull, an SEC in this, and I am just hoping to God that the SEC isn't anything, bad, I do like most of the grade 3s in this set. The reason I bought a case is because, like I said, I think Argo Siren is interesting. I really like Houndraiser, I've been a fan of Bavsagra. You may remember way back, 2, 3, possibly even 4 years ago by this point, during one of the first, BROs. I got close to topping. I went, 6-2 with Bavsagra, all the way back in, set 5. So, and it was also the first deck I, full SP'd out, aside from, Liel Amorto, which hasn't aged well because I didn't keep up with the deck afterwards, but, it is what it is. I still have those SP Trick Moons, though, so those will be nice to have. Oh, we got a personal shield ticket and our first triple R, Calliope. So we already kind of talked about the Argo Sirens. And like I said, the idea is making 5 attacks, making use of the tiding orders to kind of maintain your resource loop. Again, haven't tested the deck too much, so unfortunately I can't talk as in depth as I want about it. And we also pulled the personal shield ticket, so this is part of the generic triple Rs that they introduced in this set, so they're kind of a new form of cycler. If you call them from the hand, except by a unit ability, or if you discard it while riding from the ride deck, you can Soul Blast 1, make one of these shield tickets, and the shield ticket is a blitz order that gives you +10, or if your opponent does not have a G zone, or has a crest that isn't like the energy generator, then it gets another 5. So, oh, and I forgot one of the restrictions on the Pride Cyclers, because they all have rainbows in the background, so I've just kind of taken to calling them Pride Cyclers since I saw someone else say it. So the other thing is that they are locked to things with Persona Ride for some reason. I guess, like, Bushiroad is still afraid of stride decks, even though recently they haven't proven themselves to be, like, game-breaking anymore. It's like Chronojet's reign of dominance has traumatized the fan base. Wouldn't be the first time, I've gotta say. But yeah, those Pride Cyclers are really interesting generics. They're maybe not 100% universal just because of the demands for soul, but they are really nice to have. They fill a different niche than the Gun Cyclers, the ones that use energy. You know, those can also be used defensively to draw cards and kind of dig through your deck, as well as cycling on Ride, which is usually what they're used for, but you know, the extra 10, potentially 15k shield is really nice to have. And, like, because they also activate on play, they can kind of be a disposable body for you to kind of just throw out there. Oop. Alright, so our other silver rare from this set seems to be the Chimera for Almagestar. I don't know what you really want me to say about Almagestar as a deck. Like, it's just kind of a mess. Like, the new version is this weird amalgam of the Mask and original version, where the Mask version didn't gain a crit, so the new one is like, okay, you know, based on the number of criticals and bind like usual, but now also counts additional copies of Astroya, the grade 3, so, you know, every copy of that gives you more abilities. So the first one, it's like you give your front row 5k and retire an opponent's rear guard. That's pretty standard across all versions of Astroya, I think. I think the previous one, like, you would choose units based on the number of triggers you bind, but, like, this one is just a flat 5k to your front row, then 3 or more, you get plus crit plus a drive, which I think was the original payoff, so I think it was, like, 1, you got the retire and the 5k, 2, you got a crit, and then I think 3, you got the drive on the original. And then the mask was just, like, remove a differently named Astroya to, like, give it to, like, retire and give it the extra drive, and then on attack you could, like, restand something and give it power based on the number of crits bound. So excuse me. So the new Astroya is kind of like an in-between of both of those, where once you get to 5 cards bound, like crits or Astroyas, you get to restand something similar to the mask, but it does lock it behind a much higher bind requirement, which means you're probably not going to do it very often, like, going first. And because you don't get the same kind of power scaling the mask version has, it kind of ends up being weaker than the mask version in some regards. I don't know, it's weird. Astroya is just... it's something. Okay, so we got the Wolf. So this is another triple R. It is support for Vice Ruger, the cover card. Like I said, the gimmick is that they all have Mythish in their name, so you search out your Mythish using the Moongate, your set order. You know, you put it into the order zone, then when Vice Ruger attacks, you can counterblast, call it back out of the order zone. So you get to, like, kind of build a board, because the Moon order is like search top 7, call a Mythish, and then if you're on Vice Ruger, you can search 3 cards, call 1, put the other 2 into the order zone. So the idea is, like, you just use the Moongate as a way of, like, building a board and making offense with Vice Ruger's ability. And you can, like, deck thin a bunch, and that gold order that we got earlier, this one gives all of them 5,000 power. So you can kind of get some big numbers going alongside the deck thinning. The problem is that, like, it just costs so many resources to do that, right? So the Moongate itself is an Energy Blast 3, and then you can activate the Moongate order a second time by using Vice Ruger to Soul Blast 2, but then, you know, that's a big resource cost, and then to get the extra column call, you gotta pay a Counter Blast, and then this order, which is how you get your numbers really big, costs another Counter Blast, and then if you want to be able to draw cards to try and find more pieces, because you can't fill your whole board with just the Moongate, or you just need to draw more defensive cards to survive, like, this is either a Counter Blast or an Energy Blast, both of which you're kind of using all the time. So it just, like, never really works out resource-wise. It's just, like, so much you have to pay in to, like I said, essentially just be playing set 1 Bastion, because all you're doing is making 4 attacks with big numbers. And sure, you can get to like 50k columns, if you get enough triggers, but it's just like, that's not that impressive. And this one has 2 double Rs in it. There are so many double Rs, what the heck? But yeah, so this one is support for Alcalibra, a nice little budget deck that I've always been a fan of. So this one's pretty simple, it just gets 5k power and shield, and then when you overcharge it, it can like stop a unit from intercepting and gives itself another 5k. And then this one is Leo Amorta support, so you'll all know this has been my favorite deck recently, and this is a very powerful support card. Does a lot for the deck, so on play, if you have a Leo, you search your top 7 for Leo or Gobwelius, both of which are very good searches. Being able to find your Persona Ride is huge. Bricking on the Persona Ride means you can't use their Divine skill, and that just completely kills your ability to push for game. And then, of course, Gobwelius is just a really powerful card. And then, if you have a Leo Vanguard, it gets 5k, and then if you have Gobwelius, either on rear or in the bind zone, it gets 10 instead of 5. So it's also a really powerful beater, on par with Idaros, in case you didn't want to play that shit-ass card. I'm still doing it, because I don't learn my lesson. Alright. Let's see what is in this. I swear, we've gotten 2 triple Rs so far. I feel like that's less than we're supposed to. They're all just hiding in the very last set, or the very last packs. Alright, so we got a new copy of the Sword. So alongside the new buff Sagra, they get new arms cards. So the Sword gives your front row a continuous 5k, which means if you cycle through multiple copies of the Sword, which is very easy to do, both with the new buff Sagra's ability, but also cards like Varlord or Cindy, you can just kind of keep stacking power and push for game. And then it also gives your Vanguard an extra drive, similar to the gun, except unlike the gun, it doesn't fall off mid-battle phase and randomly turn off your effects. Also, it's another double R. I swear, we've been pulling way more double Rs than usual. But yeah, on the topic of Buff Sagra, we all know that that deck is kind of tier 0 now, so the new one, very similar to the old one, still has the like Soul Blast 2, retire the front row, give itself a crit, and then it also has a new ability, an FR, so this is Dark State stuff, and it is Almagestar support, so if you have an Almagestar Vanguard, you can choose a trigger unit from your drop, put it into your soul, and then unit in the same column as the unit stood, you can Soul Blast one to stand it, another sound system, nice. So like I was saying with Buff Sagra, similar to the old one, you Soul Blast 2 when you're armed with 2 cards, retire the front row, gets a crit. It also calls back a grade 1 or less from the drop zone. And then some additions to those abilities that were on the previous one is, if you don't retire anything with the Soul Blasting effect, you now get to draw a card, which is nice. So if your opponent tries to play around it, you still get a benefit out of it, other than just, the crit. And then the callback ability also energy charges 1. And then on top of that, Buff Sagra gets the ability to arm a card from the drop zone by cycling a card from your hand. So, like I was saying with the Sword, you can use that as like one of the things you're doing to like cycle through your arms cards. So like theoretically, you can go like Buff Sagra's effect, arm herself, that's 1 arm. You have the ability to naturally play an order from your hand, and then stuff like Varlord lets you arm like an additional time. So you can kind of use it to abuse your arms card and gain a bunch of benefits like power and card advantage. Like the new version of the shield lets you draw a card when it's played, and then like the original, it gives you 10k, and then also you can Soul Blast one for another 10k for 20 total. And just talking about her, there's the new Almagestar, and a regular version of the prison card that we saw earlier. Oh, and another Persona shield. Nice. So yeah, and then alongside that, Buff Sagra got a new rear guard that like restands itself, Yugmashad. So that one, like on play, you can Energy Blast 3, discard an arms, draw 2, and then if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, it gets plus 5k. And then it has an additional ability when your Buff Sagra attacks, you can counterblast, or at the end of the battle, Buff Sagra attacked, you counterblast 1 stand it. So Buff Sagra now just kind of does everything, right? Like it has incredible Vanguard pressure with the crit, all the extra power, the extra drive. It has defensive utility with the shield. The shield also gives you the ability to like cycle it to try and get card advantage. And then you have a bunch of rearguard pressure now because your old rearguards got really big and the new one restands itself for more attacks. It's kind of crazy. So without any restrictions to the deck, it became tier 0, and even after they banned it in Japan, it's still like a top tier strategy. Still arguably one of the best. It's kind of crazy. I'm personally looking forward to playing it. You know, like I said, I've always been looking for a reason to like Bob Sagra again. Kind of my old love before I started playing Liel Amorta. So it's good to be able to like play that again, even if people probably are going to give me shit for it because it's meta. But, you know, it is what it is. And our last card is, in fact, one of the Pride Cyclers. So like I was saying earlier, these generate the Persona Shield if you have a Vanguard with the Persona Ride ability. Sorry, Stride decks. And then on attack, if your opponent's grade 3 or greater, they also get an additional 5k. So pretty good cards overall. They're like advantage, a different kind of advantage when you discard them from the ride deck. So unfortunately, the Persona Shield can't be like discarded or used for any kind of cost. It just sits in your hand to be a shield. But they're still good. Like, they're a disposable body, they get you utility if you discard them, and like the personal shield is good, especially because in addition to all of that I said, they also let you play 2 blitz orders when they're played, so you don't lock yourself out of something like Sanctitude. And that is everything for this box. So overall, you know, these particular pulls were not very good. Luckily, I still have the rest of the case to be opened. But, and, you know, we'll see what all of that turned out to be in the stream. But, yeah. You know, I really like Set 7. Like I said, really big game changer. I do like 90% of the decks that came out of it. The one I completely forgot about was the tree, Sephiroth. You know, that also got a new version that just, like, you have the ability to now stack your Dragon Tree marker on top of things, even if they have Dragon Tree markers, and then if you get enough of them, it gets, like, a crit and extra drive. So it gets, like, really, really big. The problem is, like, it doesn't have the gimmick of activating the over trigger anymore like the old Grifo did, which kind of, you know, hurts its viability just because there's, like, no finishing move that you're kind of building up to anymore. You know, and of course, just the way the Dragon Tree operates as this generic thing, you're kind of reliant on the deck having a built-in way to make more aggro. But yeah, so aside from that one miss, I am more or less interested in everything else. Like, I'll probably play Almagestar ironically for a little bit. I really look forward to Bob Sagra. Really looking forward to Artasaria. That might be the deck I end up on in Summerfest. So, you know, who knows about that. I think one of the other people we have tapped for our team is planning to play Bob Sagra, so I'm going to take Artasaria. And then, you know, Houndraiser is just like a fun little deck. That'll be my cheap little, not quite a budget deck. Weisruger. I wanted to play it because it looked really cool, and I actually do really like Wolfzahn. I don't think I ever went into what this card specifically does. On place, it can gain the ability to attack a rearguard in addition to the Vanguard. So I always like those kind of multi-target attack type of decks. So I really wanted to play it because of the Wolf, and then it just turned out that the deck was kind of a mess, which is unfortunate. But yeah, really like Set 7 overall. It was a really good set, and hopefully the pulls from the rest of the case end up better. I am recording this before doing the rest of the pulls on stream and everything, but this will probably go up after that. So yeah, that is going to be it for this video. If you like the video, leave a like, leave a comment if you want me to just randomly, like, dump the prison cards I randomly have onto Atlas again. Or maybe I'll give him, like, Maelstrom. That's another deck that I just own and don't really like that I can maybe shunt onto him. You know, let me know if there's anything else you want me to, like, force him to play. I'll be playing everything else from the set kind of regardless. And, you know, if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter or Blue Sky at Nexus at Night. You can find me at Plasma Eclipse or Beerus Rudicus. You can find Atlas at Atlas Novak and Matt at Wiggums 2Gs 2Zs. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching, everybody. Bye-bye!